why not sort of set that expectation from the word go that like, I want to have togetherness with you, but I also want to have aloneness with me. And so the Thursdays when you, partner, friend, husband, whatever, go out and I get to be home alone.
I'm Amanda Silver.
And I'm Alex Howard.
And this is Dirty Laundry.
30 hours of sunlight this winter. Toronto.
Like all together.
Accumulation. Cumulatively? Culmination. Oh my God, I'm fucking this one up.
Yeah. 30 hours.
Yeah, cumulatively. 30 hours total of sunlight of winter in Toronto.
From November to...
Yeah, like winter solstice is what? The 21st?
Like that end of November, yeah.
No, December.
December.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. So
yeah, because Bridget's whole line is she's born in the fall because she's born on December 20th.
Oh, okay.
Because the solstice or the equinox, whatever that one is.
Sure.
And I just learned you have to take vitamin D with vitamin K.
What's vitamin K?
And not the special K.
No.
Not the horse tranquilizer.
Not the cereal.
Turned street drug. Not
I go to the cereal.
You're so sweet and innocent.
I go to the cereal.
Until I go straight for the drugs.
Oh, no.
I've not tried it though. Also don't use this.
No, never.
Okay.
We could have used the cereal part until you went to the drugs.
I do love cereal though.
Vitamin K.
Yeah, so vitamin K helps with absorption. So alternatively, I think you can like eat a bunch of spinach.
But then you're also supposed to take your iron with your vitamin C.
Vitamin C.
So then you take your vitamin C and your iron, your vitamin D and your vitamin K. And then your prebiotics and your probiotics.
Yeah.
You can't keep up with the biotics.
Yeah. You need all the biotics.
All the biotics.
Or
the antis, the pre's, the pros.
Yeah.
All of them.
Adulting is so hard. I went for a walk with my girlfriend yesterday and she was having like a tough go, as we all are, let's be honest.
She was also having a tough go.
In addition to the rest of the world, also struggling. And so we're like in line at Starbucks getting our coffee for our walk. And I just looked at her and I was like, okay, so she comes in for a hug. And I'm just like, I didn't think it was going to be this hard. I feel like they sold us. Do you just remember as a kid being like, when I'm an adult,
all my problems will be gone.
I'll make my own money.
Freedom.
I can stay up as late as I want to, eat whatever I want.
But now
I'm like,
you can't eat whatever you want.
That.
You can't stay up.
Can't drink every night.
No.
Gots to be in bed. I need to have like my fucking retainer and my eye patch and my earplugs, like all of the things.
Your earplugs. I can't.
It's like, it's impossible
like
even to get a regular sleep.
Every single bit of noise.
Oh, everything. Yeah, I'm such a light sleeper. Well, mostly just because I'm insane, but the anxiety takes over. And then once I hear one noise, then I'm listening for it. You know, like the ticking of a clock, and then you start like ticking along with it. And then you're like, it's 4 a.m. and I'm still awake. No, just me.
No,
okay.
I like go until I'm like exhausted, and then I crash.
And you have no problem falling asleep?
No, I'm a good, knock on wood, good sleeper. I'll sleep heavy, like sleep long if I'm allowed, which is.
That used to be my way. Yeah. I'll sleep till noon.
I'll notice. I bank it.
Like you'll like stockpile?
Yeah.
Like kind of like vacation? It rolls over?
You don't use it? It does. Like I find that when I'm with the kids, obviously I don't get the same amount of sleep. I'm up early and like whatever. So let's him getting like 6 or 7 hours with the kids. And then when I'm not with the kids on a weekend, I could sleep for like 10 or 11 hours.
You're only getting 6 or 7 hours?
Yeah, because I work, I'm up late, and then I'm up with the kids for school. And like I'm a night owl, so my brain doesn't shut off until at least 12 o'clock.
Yeah, I don't function on less than 9.
I know, and you turn off your phone at like 9 o'clock, and I'm like, I'm still seeing clients. Like I'm still seeing clients at night. Like I'm still like, and I'm like, oh, she's in bed by now.
I get this little like bedtime alarm at 7:45.
Yes, I noticed yesterday, 8 o'clock, your phone was on silent and I didn't like it.
It turns to sleep mode at
I don't like
8.
it.
You know, it's just trying to reduce the screen time before bed.
Fine.
No, it's not about preaching. I miss so much stuff. And the next morning, it actually sends me to like a panic spiral. I wish. Speaking of sleep,
yes,
I'm very excited.
You're going on a little retreat.
I'm going away. I'm going away for 3 days. I know.
I can't come.
I'm so sad, but also really excited for like not talking to anyone.
Because if I was
Please
there,
don't phone me.
If I was there, I'd be talking your ear off.
Exactly. We would talk too much. But yeah, 3 days, 2 nights, no kids, no husband, bring in the dog, of course, because come on. My little sidekick. And after Karis's episode, I've been like paying attention to who he loves the most.
Of course you have.
It's this gal.
It's you.
Oh yeah.
you're the one he's bonded with.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not surprised.
I mean, work from home.
Like you feed him.
And I'm the only one that walks him.
You walk him, then eats you.
It's me.
Okay.
So I got to take him, my little babe.
Yeah.
He is so freaking cute too. Maybe a little snuggly bear. But yes, so I'm just going to work.
Nice.
And I've been thinking about it actually more and more because in this line of work,
Yes.
it's hard not to think about managing kids and work. And, you know, with like entrepreneurial lifestyle, you're never done. Like there's never you've completed all your tasks and I will now retire and see what happens tomorrow, what tomorrow brings, right? Like I remember my serving days in university, well, not because I had obviously schoolwork, but you just leave. Yeah. You leave your job.
When I was teaching, I would leave.
Yeah.
I had work. Listen, I had
lots of
work to do,
assignments
preps and stuff at night. But I still wasn't on. Like I left the bell rang and I stayed and did my stuff and then left and like my day was done.
You get to shut it off.
Yeah, and we don't shut off our job.
We can't.
No.
There's always more to be done. And it does get difficult and you have to like set up those proper boundaries and force yourself to. And I'm like the queen of the to-do list because then it's like, well, this is what I've got. Once I've done these ones, I can then unplug.
No, there's never an unplug.
But there really isn't. And then you have to
force it.
Well, because then you're just struggling with the guilt of it all, of like, you could be doing more. And then I'm looking down this pipeline of like, okay, I've got 6 years left until my firstborn.
Well, you keep saying that. It's like freaking me out.
It's freaking me out. So I should stop telling you. And now I'm telling everybody.
But I don't see it like that. Cause like I see my mom and like how involved she is in our lives and how much we rely on her. And I'm in my 30s.
So beautiful.
So I'm just like, hopefully my kids and I will have that same relationship. I really hope. And then I'll just always be parenting.
Yeah. And I don't.
My mom's still parenting.
No, it's true. It's true. You don't turn it off and you're like all of a sudden like, oh, okay, kick you out of the nest and I'll never see you again.
Yeah.
This isn't, the Wild Kingdom, but the daily, like the everyday waking up and they're there, going to sleep and they're there. It's a tough one. Anyways, I digress. Yes. Point being, setting up these kind of like boundaries, not only for like my own work, but also for juggling the parenting.
Yes.
Because it is a lot when you are on constantly. How do you manage to be like, I can't?
You need a break too, and you shouldn't have to wait until you're totally burnt out and on the verge of divorce.
Yeah.
To then start getting some of your time back.
Yeah. And I know we've talked about this and like I see friends of mine or even clients and I'm like, oh, you get a week off.
Oh my God.
Which is a terrible way to look at it.
It is, but I get it.
But like, oh my God, what you could accomplish.
I've had people come up to me saying, I'm jealous of your life. I'm like, don't be. Like you have, like grass is never greener as we've discussed. But like, it's not that they're jealous that like, okay, I have a weekend to go out and, out with friends or whatever. It's that you have some time to yourself.
Exactly. You can prioritize yourself.
So you have your kid time and you have your you time and I have my work time and my socials time. And so wouldn't it be nice to be able to give that to people while they're still like happily married? Yeah. Maybe that's what's missing in a lot of marriages. Mm-hmm. Maybe that would save some marriages. Yeah.
I think so.
Is that imagine if all of the things that we put into place when someone is going through a divorce, a separation, which is like, you'll be parenting from this time to this date, this time on Tuesdays and Thursdays and Wednesdays and whatever it is. Imagine if we sat down with a couple who's married and we put out a parenting plan. We schedule a parenting plan that gives them some of their time back, releases them from the guilt of like the other parent wanting them to be there or demanding that they're there because it's agreed upon.
Yes.
And then they could sort of have more of a balance to married life, their own life, their work life.
I love this.
I just think, why not have your cake and stay married too?
Ooh. Why not? You're right, because why do folks have to wait until they're so miserable?
Yeah.
Because they don't have a healthy,
balance.
Equilateral, egalitarian parenting style or schedule. Because you're right. Like, so in my previous life, one of many, I worked a lot of evenings and weekends. And it was just, well, that's life. I have to work these hours. You have to work those hours. Right. So I'll parent when you're working, you parent when I'm working. Right. And it worked out. I mean, until it didn't, and that's a different conversation. But yes, we had that because I was working. And I think once you change it to like, oh, I just need to switch off parenting, we get into that, well, but I should be, but I could be. I'm here in the bath while, so-and-so's doing bedtime. Now I have this guilt or this. So I think you're right. When you set those parameters in place, it's agreed upon, it's decided, these are your nights, those are my nights. And,
Yeah, and these are our together nights.
And these are together nights, also
and this is
important.
our together time away from the
Yes.
kids. Like
Yep.
just creating more of
Structure.
a married parenting plan.
Why not?
Like,
but actually, why not?
why not?
And to do this even before you get married. Like or in the early days
Or like
when
you
things are
start
wonderful.
having kids, like part of the supporting.
Right. But not
Because
even. Think about the fact that like a lot when you move in, now all of a sudden, like I remember during COVID, because I work from home forever, I just go down, I make my lunch. When it fits in my schedule, I go back up to my office, I close the door, I go back to work. And then when we were all home, I was like, oh, and I gotta make lunch for everyone. It's like obligation.
You had to.
I had to, but I didn't. I put that on myself. I'm taking responsibility for this. But when someone else is in the house, oh, does anybody want anything? While I'm up, while I'm in the kitchen, what can I fetch you?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so it was, I mean, COVID was a difficult time generally speaking, but why not sort of set that expectation from the word go that like, I want to have togetherness with you, but I also want to have aloneness with me. And so on Thursdays, if I'm going to go meet friends, spectacular, I'm out, fine, whatever. But you know what's the best? The Thursdays when you, partner, friend, husband, whatever, go out and I get to be home alone. Like that's the true magic. Because anyone can go out.
That can be challenging when you have little kids to have that. Like,
to get them to take them out?
Yeah,
no.
like,
but I'm saying pre-kids.
Pre-kids.
Like your point is when you start having kids, set up a parenting plan.
Yeah,
I'm saying even
that's what I'm
before
saying.
then,
Yeah.
set up a relationship plan.
Where
it's like, these are the nights we're hanging. These are the nights I'm out with friends or I'm working or I'm taking a course, you know, or I have a hobby. And those are the nights you're out. And it's just like expectation management.
The resentment doesn't build up because you don't have to like passively aggressively say to your partner, oh, it must have been nice to go out last night. Like it kind of takes that away. It takes the pressure off of that.
Exactly. And this feeling of obligation or duty or guilt or any of these things that again are like often made up in our own minds.
Right.
But when it's just written out and planned, I don't know, it could be kind of cool.
I think it'd be really cool. Like come and schedule a session with us.
Seriously.
Like married people. Like we want to help you. Or
come and talk to us.
People.
Partnered up. And looking for like some, you know, parameters for what that looks like.
Yeah.
I think that'd be really interesting.
Okay.
Have your cake and stay married too. I'm obsessed with this line. A perfect segue into today's episode because it is all about balance.
50-50, equal parenting time. Should that be a presumption? Should that be the default? Some people say yes, others say no. The law used to say that there was a maximum contact principle where kids should have maximum contact with their parents.
With both parents.
With both parents.
Equally. Right? Yeah, let's break this down because we know this.
Yeah.
Obviously, this is what we live and breathe every day.
Yeah.
So for those who...
But it's changed. It's changed. The maximum contact principle has been removed. And it's now about the children's best interest.
Oh, as it always should be.
As it should be, right?
Yes.
Not to say that 50-50 isn't appropriate in certain situations. And we're going to talk about that today. It is definitely appropriate in certain situations. But it's also not appropriate in certain situations. And I think that that's why the law needs to get rid of presumptions, right? And standards and like defaults for children. Like how can you make a standard parenting plan for everyone and brush them with the same brush and expect that it's going to work for every family?
Well, it's so tricky because there has to be law. There has to be a benchmark by which we then measure things and are held accountable to things, et cetera, et cetera. But yes, you cannot paint it with one brush. There are so many various needs. Even as we're raising, you and I both have 2 kids. I parent them completely differently because they are completely different humans.
Right.
And so how in the world can you look at 2 families, 10 families, hundreds of families, and say, oh yeah, this will work for everyone.
For everyone.
Regardless of what age and stage, regardless. So let's pull back the curtain. So now it's changing.
Yeah, now it's changing where it looks at the best interest of the child and what that looks like. And so that's about a child's preferences, a parent's ability to provide for the kids, a parent's willingness, but it also looks at which parent is likely to facilitate and support a relationship with the other parent, which is also important too, right? And it was interesting. I read a study recently where to this point that, you know, while we want to encourage children to have quality relationships with both parents, that's the ideal, right? Is that they have a quality, supportive relationship with both parents. But the study showed that they only need 35% of time with each parent to develop that.
And is that on a certain age group, or that's, again, a blanketed statement?
It was kind of a blanketed, longitudinal study of children.
Okay.
But so what they're saying is that to get that quality time doesn't mean that you need to have equal time.
Well, quality over quantity.
Well, there you go.
Right.
Yeah. So
that's very fascinating. Yeah. And I wonder how much pushback this is getting.
Well, this is the thing. It's a lot of it's almost like it's a lot of fathers groups will say, equal, let's do it that way. And
well, because historically, they really were pushed out.
Yeah, it was mom's got the kids, the dad's got the money, and everyone was not happy.
I know this firsthand. Right? Like it was very different in the 90s. Like, let's be honest. And so part of me is like, yay, way to go, dads.
Right. There's a lot of dads that want to step up.
Yeah.
That want to raise their kids just as well.
Exactly.
And they're just as capable as mom. And there's definitely a place for that.
But it's case by case.
But I think it's case by case. And it's also when you're in our work in mediation, where people are coming from a non-adversarial point of view, where they're negotiating, they're agreeing on things, they're more amicable, maybe less high conflict, it can work and it can be fabulous. Like,
you know what though, I kind of want to push back on that and say, even with high conflict, I think mediation can still work for high conflict.
For sure. Yes.
Especially when we're talking parenting plans.
Yes.
I understand that the finances and that might get a bit more heated.
Yes.
And maybe you're bringing in other experts outside of mediators. But when we're looking at a family plan, like a literal plan for how this family is going to be raised, I want to go back with those couples and say, hey, what did you plan for when you were first getting married and you were first starting a family? You had these ideas about what and how you were going to raise your kids.
No, I didn't mean that mediation shouldn't be for high conflict. What I meant was that the 50-50 works best, I think, for families who are in mediation, who are lower conflict.
Say more.
I think that when you get to court, okay, when you're already at a point where you need a judge to make a decision for you because you two can't decide, 50-50 is probably not appropriate. Because the conflict is so high, the communication is so poor, all of those things. But I think if you're, in mediation, you're both sort of looking at it from a child-focused perspective. Right. You don't want to tear each other up in court. You are trying to be more amicable just by being in mediation. You're trying to do it the non-adversarial way. That's when I think 50-50 can work. But I think when a judge has to step in and there's high conflict, and we'll talk about when it's not appropriate, when it is, and there's potential, safety concerns, then I don't think that they can just blanket wash it with 50-50. Then I think they really need to look at, is that going to work?
I guess
I don't mean that high conflict can't mediate. I think high conflicts should mediate, but I don't know if a 50-50 is great for high conflict.
I guess that's what I'm wondering why. So let's take mediation out of it. Let's even take the courts out of it. Let's just say you have a high conflict couple and they both think the other parent is going to do just as good a job as them and it's going to be fine and that's going to work for them. And why won't it if they're high conflict?
Why won't it?
I would say less transitions if they're high conflict. So that's where I would vouch for the 7 and 7. Again, age dependent, child dependent, yada, yada. But that's less interaction between the parents.
You want, obviously
less
you want
back
to have
and
less
forth,
transitions.
less like, oh, did Timmy forget his shoes at your place? Like less cause for communication.
But let's take the parents aside.
So we're just looking at the kids. This is your argument. Just talking kid related.
I'm saying. Like, let's look at it from the child's perspective, which is what the law is now trying to do, right?
Which
is
I love.
Best interest of the child test. Okay. Let's look at the child's perspective, where they have 7 days on, 7 days off, with two parents who can't communicate, who are in high conflict, who maybe are exposing them to a conflict, into, parental disagreements and getting caught in the middle and all of those things, allegations of poor parenting. It's almost like they're in two different worlds and they're shuffled back.
I see what you're saying.
The consistency isn't there.
I see what you're saying.
Right.
So
like kids
the higher the conflict, the more they'll feel it between the two homes.
Of course they will. Of course they will. I think that I've seen 7 and 7 work, but I've seen it work with parents who are, very much on the same page. They have a flexibility. They can drop off at each other's houses. Oh, I can't make it today. I'm going to pick up, even though it's not my day. There's communication. They can have a coffee together. You know, they can go for dinner together with their kids.
Let's not get carried away.
Let's not get carried away. Okay, fine. But I've seen it work where there's more, they get along better.
Yeah.
And I think that's when it can work beautifully because they're consistent with their kids.
I see. Consistent in their parenting style.
For sure. And in their communication. It's not like it's a black hole of like, oh, the kid's away for a week and I don't know what's going on and I'm not getting any information. If they had a fever or they didn't have a fever, I don't know. I don't know what's going on.
That's a parenting issue. That's not a kid. That's not necessarily not in the best interest of the child.
Is it in the best interest of the child for them to be in two completely different worlds half of the time?
I mean, kids are adaptable. We know that.
They say they're resilient, but does their resilience need to be tested?
No, and I actually am in agreement with you. I just like to push back because it's fun. Parental conflict is regardless of whether it's primary or shared parenting. You're still going to get that. You're still going to have to act differently at one parent's house than the other.
For sure.
And if one parent is a weekend parent and not the primary, and they're having 2 or 3 days with the kids are still having a difficulty in transition. They're still behaving different. They're having different food. They're parented different. All of that stuff still exists. And so, okay, yes, what I'm in 100% agreement is that we should not be choosing one default style of a parenting plan.
Exactly.
Agreed. And I think in my whole point circling back was in mediation, we actually have the opportunity to sit down with both and hear their ideas around parenting and what is in the best interest of the child.
Why parent A and parent B are asking for the 50-50.
Well, sure.
Or not.
Yeah.
So we have to get into the
why. Underlying motivation is a huge question mark.
And really fleshing that out and looking at the specific kids' needs, right? So like, are they in hockey? Are they in AAA? Are they in gymnastics competitions? Like, what are their lives like?
And who's actually able to do all the driving?
Right. And what will facilitate them for having a sort of a more of a smooth ride, right? Is that focus.
Yes.
On the kids' schedule and the kids' lives and where the parents fit into it, not the other way around.
Okay, see this, now we're getting somewhere.
This is the beauty of mediation.
So what is the kids' schedule?
Right.
And who can fit into that?
I don't just mean what's their hockey schedule. I just mean in general, based on their needs.
Yeah.
They're doing, we do know that kids do best with consistency.
Yeah.
So what does that look like, right? And what are their needs? Do they have special needs? Do they have special learning needs? Like, how can we maintain a consistent, smooth ride for these kids while still making sure that they have a lot of time with both parents and quality time with both parents.
That's the key,
right? And
if one parent
it's a hard
is working,
dance to do.
Exactly. If one parent is working insane hours,
right? They might want 50-50, and they might be great at taking on, but it's unrealistic. They just can't.
Yeah.
And I've had those conversations with parents. Yeah. Maybe mom is traveling for work and just is like, you know what, I want it, but I'm the breadwinner here. I'm supporting the family, even though we're getting divorced. I just can't.
Absolutely.
But
you know what that takes? A lot of self-awareness and a lot of pushing your ego aside.
I think
let's not even talk about the financials.
No, the financials are a whole other.
In your anecdote, there's mom who's doing the majority of the, let's say, bill paying.
Yes.
Literally earning more.
Yes.
And thus needs to work more. And therefore, partner B, mom's ex, is going to do more parenting time. It is very hard as a mom to say, oh, I don't have my kids. At least 50-50.
The shame. Oh, I know.
Society alone is going to just destroy her.
Every person I speak with who's gotten divorced or they're talking about divorce, they always go, are you 50-50? Do you do 50-50? It's like that is the default for what's great. What makes you a good parent.
Right.
And there are situations where 50-50 doesn't work for your family. And doesn't mean that you're not a good parent. It just means that you're putting your kids first and their needs first. And you're realizing that maybe a home-based situation is better for them, where they have roots in one place more and spend time in the other house as well. And it doesn't mean that you're not also doesn't
finish
mean
that sentence.
It doesn't mean that you're not a good parent. And maybe on the contrary,
better parent.
A better parent.
Because you're recognizing what your kids need, not what you need.
Exactly. Like I need to show all of my friends that I got the 50% because and it shows the world that I'm just as good of a parent as she is. Or I've been working nights. I'm making maybe more money. I need to keep up my work schedule. Mom's been home with the kids for the most part. They rely on her to do all the carpools. Just because we're getting divorced, does that need to change?
So looking more at the status quo, what existed in your relationship before?
What was working and what wasn't?
How did you parent? And what did that division of parenting time look like when you were still together?
And destigmatizing.
Well, sure.
That issue, right? Just because you don't have 50-50 doesn't mean that you haven't made good decisions for your kids or that you're not a great parent.
And we're not saying it doesn't need to be 50-50 decision making.
No, that's a whole other thing.
That's
We're
a whole
talking about
other kit and
parenting
caboodle.
time.
Yeah. Because again, looking at your relationship pre-divorce, was that decision making 50-50? Like, I think that's where we need to really be going as a default. What was your parenting style, decision-making style, parenting time while you were married and functioning like regular happy human couples?
Yeah.
What did it look like? Start there.
But on the other, play devil's advocate is like, what about the parent who, did give up a lot of parenting time because they were, focused on their career, and now they're getting divorced and they've, reevaluated everything and now want to be more of a presence in their children's lives.
Yep.
Give them that opportunity too. I just don't think that putting
that
a presumption
needs to be had,
and putting a presumption, like we're talking about the law or we're talking about just sort of standards, putting these standards in for families shouldn't happen.
Such an interesting thing that only in separation and divorce do you get to have this like other person come in and make decisions for you. Like if you're happily married, whatever, not even happily, if you're miserably married, but you've not brought in any expert, quote unquote,
right?
You could just do whatever you want. Behind closed doors, nobody knows what's going on in your house.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you're under this microscope and every past decision is now being looked at and dissected and judged. Like literally a judge is deciding for you.
Yeah.
So it's like, I am here advocating for this like status quo. And at the same time, I'm like, oh, do I want to be judged on like my worst day?
I know.
Or
Every
decide
time
on
you
how
say something, you think of like, wait a second.
The flip side, yeah.
And I think the common theme here is that treating every single case
the same
as the same is not correct.
It's a slippery slope,
right?
Yeah.
And treating every case as a unique situation with different kids, different needs is the way to go.
Yeah.
But I think that's also hard because in the courtroom, because they always go on precedent, right? What did Judge A do? What did Judge B do? But maybe that needs to change too.
Well, because again, that's looking at judges' perspective, not the family perspective or the children's perspective.
Right. But it does trickle down to the mediation room, because what's happening in the courts and with the courts definitely does impact our clients coming in saying, well, I know if I go to court, I'm going to get 50-50, or I think I'm going to get 50-50, but now, are you? Is that the best?
Should you?
Should you? Are you? The changes in the law say you might not. It really depends on what's best for your kids.
But I love that. Let's look at the kids' schedule.
Look at the kids' schedule, what the kids' needs are.
Which parent is best on which day. And kind of
start
there.
It might be that the equal parenting time works.
Yeah, we're not saying ditch it entirely.
And I have clients who they both come into my office and they're like, we've decided we want 50-50 and we're going to try out 3-4-4-3 or 5-2-2, whatever. And I'm like, great, let's do it. Let's go ahead. Great. They've decided. They've agreed. But it's when you can't agree that you have to really question whether or not a standard is appropriate.
And that's where, though we, of course, operate within the confines of the law, we do get to be a little bit more creative in mediation and actually sit and talk to these parents and potentially the kids and kind of say, okay, what is happening and what do you want?
I've had clients who they've separated when they have very young children, like an infant. And so they both have said, you know what, we're going to do primary, secondary parenting for the first 5 years. And then when the child is older, we're going to step up to 50-50. And that works for them. Yeah. Right? Or we're just going to come back to mediation and see how that's going. Yeah. Right? Because they recognize that, young babies, we know what the research says about primary care, et cetera. And that's great. But when you go to a courtroom, it's like, you just don't know what's going to happen.
Not only do you not know, often it's, well, who has the better lawyer?
Right. Who can wrap things up in a nice bow better than the other.
Yeah.
And who has
It is
more-
unfortunate. It's a bit of a conflict of interest.
Yeah.
If you can afford a better lawyer, your outcome is likely to be better. And I'm not even talking just in family court.
No,
courts
in general.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So that is also something to be taken into consideration.
Yeah.
Which is really scary because this is your family. These are your babies,
Family,
right?
yeah.
It's really tricky. And I mean, we've talked, about interim plans,
Yes.
testing the water.
To me, that is the gold standard.
I think so.
Is to come to a mediator, have an interim plan where nothing's set in stone.
Yes. No money is being exchanged or decided upon.
Exactly. It's just let's try it out, trial and error. Let's try 6 months, a year, whatever the timeline is.
Yeah.
And see how the kids do and how we do with this schedule. And if it's not working, change it.
Yeah.
We don't need to go to a judge and put in a motion and spend 20 grand to change the days of the weeks of when they're with who.
I will reiterate that it takes a very self-aware and confident person to be like, oh, we thought 50-50 was going to be best, but I actually can't handle it.
Yeah.
Or I don't have time, or I have to work more, or whatever that looks like. Because again, the stigma, the judgment, it's
this stigma because everyone wants, equal roles, equal. But sometimes parenting is not so equal.
I would venture to say it is never equal.
If we've learned anything from the work that we do, is that parenting can't be equal.
From the work we do and from just being a mom.
It's just not.
It's not.
There are certain things that dad does or mom does or one mom does, the other mom, even if you're in a same-sex marriage.
Yeah.
It's just,
genders be damned. It does not matter.
Nothing to do with gender. It's just parent A and parent B. It's not going to be equal.
Yeah. Okay, so if 50-50 is not appropriate for everyone, and I'm agreeing it's 100% not, what do we do? What do folks do?
Yeah, there's so many alternatives to 50-50.
Okay.
Right? There is, we call it primary, secondary, where there, weekends, every other weekend with one parent.
I think that's the big thing is, we touched on it. This idea of like a weekend parent. It's so yucky.
Right.
It's so yucky because when you are together, even if you are working late, you can still pop in for a little tuck in at night. Even if you're like,
people don't want to give up.
They don't. And I get that.
Yeah.
I have had late nights and I'm like, okay, I'll go home and I'll like just jump in bed and have a little snuggle.
Yeah. They're sleeping. You watch, you just tuck them in.
And that has nothing to do with parenting. At that point, that's selfishly for me.
You just want to be close to them.
But you want to be close. Yeah. And the last thing I would ever want is to be called a weekend parent. So I think, in referencing stigmas again, we have to have better verbiage for this, or I don't know, because you're not going to be like, oh, I'm a Monday, Tuesday parent, so like weekend parent falls off the tongue much easier,
But there's a stigma.
But it's yucky.
Yeah.
But it's yucky. And so I understand why parents, even in theory, even if it's not the best for the kid, I understand why they're fighting for it. But I can also appreciate it's not the best. I get it. I get it.
For your kids, what's an alternative?
Totally. So how do we, and is this way too pie in the sky, but how do we give parents a little bit more? Like, yes, you're a secondary, but
more.
But with more.
But plus.
Yeah, secondary plus.
A secondary plus.
Like Paramount plus. I want a bit more than just prime.
That's where the beauty lies.
In mediation?
Well, of course, in mediation where you can not just plug our,
But we will.
But is that plus? So okay, maybe they're sleeping at dad's house Friday to Monday, every other Friday to Monday, and 1 or 2 nights a week, every other week or whatever it is. But it's the other stuff. It's like hockey or skating or drive to school or pick up from school or take for dinner. Like that flexibility, that frequency is so nice. And it doesn't work with everyone. And it can't work with everyone. It can't work where people can't be in the same room together.
But maybe that's the goal.
Instead of more of a fluid parenting plan. Like, wouldn't that be nice to be like, oh, I'm going out for dinner with mom tonight. Dad's taking me to soccer tomorrow. You're seeing your parent. It's not so rigid.
I think that comes with age.
But by the time you get to that point, the kids are old enough to make their own decisions.
But that's what I mean. I think when, and I guess this is kind of more a shout out to parents that are really struggling with this right now.
Yeah.
Especially when you have younger children, right? If you're separating and divorcing and your kids are already teens, it's a completely different discussion.
Totally different.
So here's my little PSA for parents that are kind of in the thick of it right now with little ones. that does come. When they're teens, they can hop on the subway or take an Uber and pick kind of who they, where they want to go.
Right.
And, I'm going to a party at Sally's and she lives close by, so I'm going to pop over and sleep at so-and-so's. Like, I think that's where we're seeing more of that fluidity.
Regardless of any orders or parenting plans or agreements, that's going to come because your kids get older.
So how do we take that idea of this fluidity, of this, because that's the kids being
It's
first.
child-led.
Because it's child-led.
It's child-led.
And I think that's the crux of what we're trying to get at here. And it's maybe taken us this long to really come to be able to articulate that. When your kids get to an age where they are choosing and it is child-led, everyone is happier and conflict goes down.
Yeah.
Because if my kids came to me like, I want to go to dad's, I'd be like, okay, what am I going to say? No, you can't. Look at my separation agreement.
Right. They'd be like, I don't give a shit about your agreement. I'm going to go to dad's anyway.
Exactly.
Like, they don't care.
Exactly.
They can do what they want.
So how can we impart that kind of flexibility and child-led is just the absolute perfect way to summarize it when they're little.
And they can't necessarily specify or vocalize what they want and need.
And like, yes, we have voice of the child, and we have
all these like
all these other wonderful tools, but
you're talking even younger. Like voice of child usually around 9, 10, but like you're talking even younger, like toddlers. Like how do we get that?
And how as parents can we, because I can obviously only imagine being in a position where my ex-husband wants to come over at 9 p.m. at night to like tuck my kids in.
No, right.
What if I've got a new partner? Or what if I've like, well, exactly. It's just, that's untenable.
Not necessarily like in your space.
No,
like, I think having your own personal space is important.
I want to be a big enough person to be like, yes, please swing by and come and kiss the kids, even though it's not your day.
Come and do bath. But
yet I can say, as somebody who is still married and does not have to make this decision, I'm already like, no fucking way you're coming in on my time.
Right.
Like I can see my defenses going up. So I'm empathizing so much with the folks that are going through this.
Maybe it's not found inside the home. Maybe it's found in the extras.
Okay,
in the driving
come to hockey, come to
take the kids to school today.
Whatever.
Right. Take the kid, pick up, do this. Like I think that's where I think coming into the home is invasive and it can lead to problems.
Very problematic.
Right? I think with boundaries and things that can happen. But I think that it's the outside. It's the doctor's appointment. It's the soccer practice. It's the driving to school. It's the play dates. That kind of stuff is where you can really get some quality parenting time, assuming that you both agree and you're both flexible. It's that flexibility. One kid's sick. I have a meeting today. Can you take them?
Yeah.
Can you keep them at your house? I know it's not your parenting day, but who cares?
And what that really takes
takes maturity and being child focused. And unfortunately, and I'm not blaming parents because it's an emotional time. They're not always in that headspace. Yeah. So they make these choices. Yeah. And in these high emotional states because they're so upset at what their spouse did or isn't doing. And then the kids don't get the benefit of that child-led plan.
And again, once again, the kids are losing out because of parental conflict.
They have to stick to their 4 p.m. pickup and their 5 p.m. exchange because that's what their agreement says.
And those parameters are so crucial in so many instances.
Yes, for safety issues, they need to be in place. We get it. But in other cases, if you can be flexible, even if it's primary, secondary, you can offer that flexibility.
And I think that flexibility comes with some generosity.
You have to leave your ego at the door, leave your pride at the door, and be like, you know what? Well, you didn't give me enough notice to come to their soccer practice. Just go with the flow. Yeah.
Right? And if there is the opportunity, like a birthday party where there's lots of people, so it's not like you have to have this one-on-one awkward interaction, then invite them.
Yeah.
Be generous of spirit because it actually benefits your kid.
Go trick-or-treating together.
Yes, exactly.
Or split trick-or-treating. Let them go on that trip. Make these concessions because at the end of the day, it's best for the kids. Yeah. This episode was written and created by Alex Howard and Amanda Silver, produced, edited, and engineered by RTF Productions. Make sure to rate and review our show if you loved it and give us a follow on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you stream your podcast to stay up to date on all upcoming episodes. Thanks for listening and go easy on us. We're not your ex.